So our next lesson that we're going to be looking at is going to involve using quotations effectively. So we have looked at a lesson that deals with thesis statements. We have looked at a text comparison, and we have worked on annotation. So if you'll take a look at the first 9 weeks, big picture, I would like you to notice where this lesson falls, which is in week 3. So this is going to be a lesson that is very early within the school year because we want our students to learn how to effectively use evidence, and we're going to teach them to use evidence through the use of quotations and context. And so with this lesson, I also want you to notice the progression of the AEC form of writing with assertion, evidence, and commentary. So, again, we've begun with our thesis statement lesson. We're moving to our quotation lesson. And then in the next week, we have our writing commentary lesson because we want students to be able to effectively write analysis paragraphs as they are moving throughout their academic year, because it's going to occur many times over the course of our curriculum. So let's make certain that we teach these lessons effectively. So this again is where it falls on the big picture. So now let's look at our lesson. So, again, the lesson is called Using Quotations Effectively, and we are going to revisit our friend Red Jacket by looking at his speech. And so, this is going to be the document that is found within Canvas that gives you teacher notes and introduces the teacher to the lesson. So, if you notice, you have this short blurb about the lesson, and it again talks to you about how this is significant because we're teaching students to incorporate quotations into their writing. It asks you to look at the materials and the resources that are needed, assessments that are used, and then if you'll notice within the teacher notes, you have teacher suggestions. And so this gives you an idea of how you can use the 2 options of activities within the lesson. So within the lesson, you will be able to notice that there are different levels of differentiation and scaffolding, and you as the teacher will be able to determine what's best for your students. So I have highlighted this portion of the teacher notes because I think it's significant that you pay close attention to the fact that even though a second copy of Chief Red Jacket's speech has been provided, we definitely want to make certain that students use their first copy, which has already been annotated, because we want them to pay attention to their annotations that they made during that first lesson. So, also in the teacher notes, we have the activities that are separated here, and this gives you, the teacher, just an idea of what you should be doing throughout these activities for your students. So again, we have activities 2 and 3 that give you an idea of the scaffolding and the differentiation that is provided. So if we scroll on down, we'll notice once again that we have Chief Red Jacket's speech. We have the prompt that is asking students to look at a variety of things, such as the elements of diction, repetition, contrast, or similarities. Contrast and similarities are going to play into a big portion of this lesson, so it's significant that you make certain that you draw attention to that. So you're going to want students to read through this speech again. You guys have already looked at this speech today, so it's probably still fresh in your mind, but if it's not, then just take a second to read back through your annotated version of the speech. And then if you'll notice that we kind of dive very quickly into the lesson. So this says that this is a foundation lesson because obviously this is going to be the foundation for our students to be able to write effectively throughout the school year. Pay attention to this highlighted box that talks about the AEC paragraph. One thing that I want us to make certain that we pay attention to is that if you have been an A+ school for several years now, you are going to be receiving students in your 10th grade classes that have been exposed to AEC paragraphs in the grade levels below them. And if this is your first year as an A+ school, then you will notice this over the next few years, and you'll notice that students are very familiar with the verbiage AEC, and this should be a review for them by the time they're in 10th grade. But at this point, you just want to teach it like it is a new notion to them. So, as we are looking at this lesson, you will see that the students are going to be looking at an example journal entry because they are going to be working through essentially a dialectical journal. Students, again, that have been exposed to the A+ curriculum in grade levels lower than 10th have been completing dialectical journals for several years now. But if, again, this is your first year in A+, then this might be a new notion. And so this might be something that you want to focus heavily on, because a dialectical journal is going to reappear throughout the big picture, and it's going to be very significant to student learning. So if you'll notice in the example dialectical journal, in this first column, we have our evidence. And so this is going to be a quotation or a detail in context. And so we have the quotation that's chosen. We have the context. And notice that we want students to pay attention to what occurs prior to the quotation. And we also want them to make sure that this is very succinct. So 12 words or less. And then we have commentary. And so if, again, you noticed on the big picture, the commentary lesson comes after this lesson. So we want to make certain that we are providing the scaffold for students here with commentary, because that's not something that we have really dived into just yet. And so we want to make certain that we provide them that soft landing and help them with commentary. So if you'll notice, again, our task here is to make certain that we are able to come up with an assertion or a topic sentence based upon the journal above. And so we have an example of that right here with the topic sentence: Red Jacket's inclusive diction strengthens his argument that Native Americans are entitled to religious freedom. So as we're moving on, after you have looked at that example journal, you'll notice that you're going to be putting the process to work by writing a body paragraph based upon the topic sentence or assertion. So we have provided this example as well for you to look at. We have our assertion, we have evidence, and we have commentary by putting together the information that is in this dialectical journal along with the assertion / topic sentence here. So you'll notice that this is just a repeat of what is above, and then you have the paragraph put together here. Okay. So activity 1 within this lesson asks students to analyze the purpose. And so we have a dialectical journal example that is filled out. We have the evidence with quotation and context, and then we have commentary. And so we're asking students to put this information in these blanks here. And so I'm not going to ask you to do that. I'm going to ask you to notice that also within Canvas, you have a key. And so we're going to look at this key very quickly for activity 1 so that we can move into activities 2 and 3 for you for your afternoon work. So if you'll notice in the key, we have taken this information from the journal and we have put it into paragraph form. So the italicized red is the information that is from the journal. And we want students to put this together so that they notice the construction and the progression of these paragraphs. Okay. So again, you have this key provided for you in Canvas. So going back to the student version of the activity, notice that activity 2 asks you to analyze the purpose through contrast. And so if you'll notice, you have again another dialectical journal, but it is divided into chunks. And so this dialectical journal is completely filled out, and then it asks students to do a variety of things using the chunks from the journal above. So I am going to make certain that you are comfortable with this by working with a partner or a small group. And so I'm going to assign you those groups in Canvas, and you are going to collaborate through your Google Doc on the chunks that are assigned to you. And so if you are assigned chunk 2, you will look at chunk 2 within this dialectical journal, and then you will come down here and you will complete the assigned portion of for chunk 2. Okay? And then for activity 3, you'll do the same thing. Notice though that for activity 3, the scaffolding is a little less here. And this is provided again for you to be able to determine what is best for your students, whether you want to assign one activity or the other based upon your students' level in class, or if you want to assign both activities if you have time, that is fine as well. So when you are assigned the chunk, you will look at the assigned chunk in activity 2 and activity 3, and you will complete that portion in your Google Doc for your afternoon work.